Hey, y'all, this is Shane Sams. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast today. Man, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you tuning in every single week. I know your time is valuable, and I'm so thankful that you chose to spend time with me today. I've got another great guest on the Shane Sams Show, another awesome expert, another awesome author, another awesome entrepreneur, another person out there in the marketplace, making money, making a big impact, doing great things. I've got an awesome guest for you today. He's my good friend, Matt Rayburn. He is the Chief Relationship Officer for a company called Oxlos. Oxlos is an amazing live event company. They put together an incredible event called Life Surge. Surge your life God's way. This is a full-day conference where you've got incredible music from people like Maverick City and Matthew West, Grammy Award winners like Israel Houghton, and incredible speakers like Tim Tebow, Priscilla Shire, Willie Robertson, and heck, yo boy Shane Sams has even been on the Life Surge stage, people. A couple years ago, the founder of Oxlos, Joe Johnson, reached out to us and asked us to partner with them. We have very similar missions of Flipped Lifestyle, my online business company, and Oxlos. And from day one, I got to know Matt Rayburn. Matt Rayburn is an expert in building relationships and treating relationships as the foundation, the cornerstone for everything you do in business and in life. It's his job to go out and find all these amazing people that are on stage at Life Surge. It's his job to manage relationships from the biggest of stars on the stage all the way to the people working in the office. And as I've got to know Matt and as he's earned my respect and I've watched him do his job, I have learned so much about building better relationships, deeper, more authentic relationships in my business than I ever knew before. And I was like, man, I got to bring this guy on the podcast so he can share that relationship wisdom with you right here on the podcast. I can tell you right now, y'all, if you want to grow your business, you need to focus on relationships first. And we're going to help you do that today. As we go through my interview with Matt, you're going to learn how to go build authentic relationships with people you don't even know. How do you reach out to somebody that you want to meet? How do you build that relationship? How do you instantly display trust and authenticity? What are the pitfalls you got to avoid to screw up a relationship right in the first 3 seconds? When you finally get that opportunity to talk to or meet somebody that you want to build a relationship with, how do you not screw it up? We're going to cover that on today's podcast. And as important as meeting people and building new relationships is, we're also going to talk a lot about managing that relationship. You know, that's where most of the time, most of the energy, most of the effort's coming from. We all know relationships can be messed up with a flippant word or an act of omission or just not being on the same page with one another. So Matt's going to tell us how they not only build new relationships, not only earn new relationships, not only come into fellowship and partnership with other people in these relationships, but how to manage that relationship so you can keep them for the long term. This podcast is going to help anybody in the planet that listens to it, that listens to other people or has relationships with other people. So that's all y'all are going to get that benefit today. I had a blast talking to my buddy Matt Rayburn. I cannot wait to bring this interview to you. So wherever you are listening from, maybe you're in your car, maybe you're taking a walk, maybe you're sitting on the couch with a mason jar of sweet tea. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Enjoy the show. Three, two, one. Matt Rayburn. What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Shane Sams. I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing better now. I'm talking to you.
We had a good weekend. We had a good weekend at Life Surge, Dallas, Texas. Did we not, man?
I'd say we had a great weekend. Good is not good enough for what we all experienced.
Do you remember? I remember. I always tell this story. When I first met Joe in person, I talked to him on Zoom, and then we flew down to Bradenton. It was me, Joe Johnson, you, and Maggio on a Zoom connection, Matt Maggio on a Zoom connection that didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were talking about this big live event thing. And I'm not going to lie, I was sitting there about 40% going, is this, I was waiting for candid cameras to jump out or something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And last weekend, man, 8,000 people in an arena in Dallas, Texas, standing and watching speakers and listening to worship music for like 10 hours.
I know.
Never lost their energy. Is that not crazy, man? Like that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I know. No, I distinctly remember. It's so beautiful what the role I get to play of just meeting people like you and bringing the puzzle pieces together for this thing that God's doing.
Yeah.
And man, I remember that. I remember meeting on those Zoom calls that weren't working in Bradenton, Florida, meeting at lunch and talking about these big plans. And everyone's like, we're not quite sure.
You sure about this? You sure about this?
We don't know if you're right in the head.
Dude, we're just going up the hill on the roller coaster, though, I think. Like, I don't even think it's not even like you're coming down the backside yet. It's just you've left the gate, you know? Yeah. And you have the coolest title. That's one reason I wanted to talk to you on the podcast, like Chief Relationship. I mean, what officer? Like, right? Like when I heard your title, like they gave you that title, and I've seen you work now for a long time, and I'm like, why does every business not have a Chief Relationship Officer, man? Because like nothing matters but like people and relationships, you know?
Yeah, totally. Me and Joe worked together for years in different businesses. I started out in the ministry world and ended up in the business and real estate world.
Yeah, I want to talk to some about that here in a minute, for sure.
Yeah, and he knew I always ended up in some made up position, basically strategic relationship manager. Always, right. No matter what company I ended up at, it's just that's where I landed. I started out as an assistant or as a project manager or whatever it was, salesperson, and it always morphed into more. I kind of made it happen. I would say, hey, this is the most important thing and I can help you make that happen, but you have to care about relationships.
Yeah.
If you just care about relationships, I'll show you can do something that you couldn't do otherwise if you were just trying to sell something to somebody.
That's right.
And so actually that's part of how I came to LifeSurge. When me and Joe reconnected over this, he said, I need someone like you. I know how you care about relationships, and this business, unlike any other business out there, or more so than any other business, is all about relationships. He knew
everything.
The business model could be perfect. Everything could line up perfectly. But if we didn't care about our relationships at a very high level, very intentional and real level, it would fall apart somewhere along the way. So it started out as, hey, we just need speakers. We just need partners. We just need people to join this vision. And we just started running. And then once we had our first one under our belt, I came back to Joe and we were starting to grow a little bit more and become more official. And I said, hey, look, this is a rare thing. There's a few companies out there that have this, but I think we should be leading the way in this. I think there needs to be a C-level position that tells the world that LifeSurge and everything that we're doing, this vision that we're chasing after, cares very greatly about relationships. Yeah, and so basically just created the position.
Yeah, it's amazing. And like for everybody listening who may not know what's going on. So like basically we partner with Matt and Joe Johnson and these people. You can actually go back and listen to the founder of LifeSurge in Oxlow, Joe Johnson. He's been on this podcast before too. I'll put the link in the show notes. And what we're doing is we're going out and getting just a bunch of people who love people to get up on stage, play music, worship, go out and try to build some revival out in the marketplace for entrepreneurship, for Christian entrepreneurs, for people out there who are looking for something different, looking to increase their income, increase their wealth, and it is crazy that I tell you where I feel the relationships the most, like, is on game day, right? Like, I mean, you and I text each other, and like I text different people, and there's all that's going on, but we're all so busy with what we're trying to do to pull all this stuff off, right? That we're kind of busy, but then you get to game day. And like you can feel all the you can feel it backstage. You can feel it when we're out there. Like even new people. Like even if I just met somebody. Like who was what was the MC's name last week? Oh Lord, have mercy.
DJ. Oh, the MC.
Yeah.
Nick Brandt. Yeah.
Nick Brandt. So I met Nick, and just instantly I knew. I was like, oh, you're one of us. Okay, cool. Yeah. Like it was like you can tell that it's like we harp a lot on in Flipped Lifestyle over in my business on culture. Like culture, who we bringing in, do they fit the culture? Are they going to advance the culture? And like, I really feel like the culture backstage has been advanced through these relationships. And I know it's you doing it. And it's funny on game day, because let me tell you something, Matt Rayburn's a busy man on LifeSurge day, baby. I mean, he has got to walk people here, walk people there, keep people out, do this and do that. Like, I don't even know how you pull it all off, man. But okay, so hold on, let me back up a little bit. We need some background to figure out how you became chief relationship superstar, taking care of all the speakers and also just relationships are all about personalities, managing personalities, But so before you met Joe, like you met Joe at a car lot. We'll talk, right? All right. So hold on. What were you doing like before the car lot? Like what was Matt Rayburn doing before you started selling B&Ws and all this started? Like what's your background real quick?
I'll try and keep it short and sweet. I grew up outside of Atlanta, a little town called Loganville, Georgia. And I grew up in church. I grew up thinking I was going to be a youth minister. And then I went on mission trips and thought I'm just going to be a full-time missionary. And that was just going to be the direction of my life. I wasn't fantastic in school, to say the least. And I was just chasing after God really young. He grabbed a hold of me in middle school, and I just didn't want to do anything else but run after him and do stuff in his kingdom. Of course I was young. So at the time, growing up in church and growing up, especially in Atlanta, I don't know if this is a bad term to use, but I tell people all the time and they always laugh and they get it. Atlanta's like the Christian mafia. Like Atlanta, man, every business, every church, every ministry, every large conference it's all intertwined. It's all relationships. Everybody knows everybody. Everyone's connected. Someone who goes to this church is doing this thing at this company and also part of this great big conference that happens once a year or whatever. And it just spreads out from there like a spider web across the country. And I'm sure there's other pockets that are very much like that. I mean, that's the church, right? That's beautiful. Yeah, it's like that. But growing up around it, going from Loganville to when I graduated high school, I was in seminary for a little bit and was in like West Midtown, living with some buddies, and got super involved at Passion City Church when they launched Passion City from a conference to a church, and got super involved in all that. And that was my world. I was running a nonprofit for students in missions. I was going to seminary. I was going to church, super involved in student ministry at Passion City.
Was you going to try to get an MDiv or just Bible college, or what were you trying to do?
Because I was terrible at school. Some of my buddies just ended up at New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary.
I'll go with you guys. Nobody else will take me. The church will.
Exactly. That was exactly what happened. I was graduating and had started a little nonprofit for students on missions and in high school. Like junior year of high school, it hit me. That was the first time I did something that was like, okay, I can create stuff out of nothing that God wants me to do. And so I was doing that, and I was so prideful at the time. I was like, okay, God, you gave me this, and now I'm just going to go speak on Passion City stage and get kids to go on mission trips. And I had this grand idea because that's what was around me. So that's what I thought would be the next stage of life. About 2 years into running that ministry and being an 18-year-old in college, having no idea what I was doing, I hit a brick wall with that and basically put it aside. And God said, let that go. That was a learning lesson. I just wanted you to learn something and see
those brick walls will teach you real fast.
Oh yeah. They'll teach you real fast. And so I put that down. I was kind of trudging through seminary, loved it. It was really great learning theology and hermeneutics and all that great stuff. I loved that, but I knew I didn't want to be a pastor. And I was like, I don't feel like I want to be a pastor or this. So I tried being a missionary. I was like, okay, God, I'm going to go to Uganda. You know what? Psych, God, I'm going to China. Throw me in the deep end. Like, let's go. And it was crazy. Every trip I tried to take, he shut the door like so hard. Like the group that I was going with to China called me and said, hey, we've never had this happen before. But everyone else canceled on the trip. You're the only guy that wants to go. So we're canceling the trip.
We've never had this happen before, Matt Rayburn, but the clouds parted and a light came out of it. And God said, Matt can't go.
He said, stop trying to do things for me. I'm good. And it was so cool. I've always been that way where I was just like, okay, God, you're either going to open doors or close doors, and I'm just going to run through them or not. And so that was probably the only thing I was kind of doing right at the time. So I'll speed up a little bit. That was where I was.
I love what you said too. I love one thing you said though. I have so many friends, dude, because I hang out with a lot of Christian entrepreneurs and, a lot of people with backgrounds going to church and things like that. If I had a nickel for every time somebody said, I thought I was going to be a youth pastor, ... Like, it's like, I think that must have like more turnover than a fast food restaurant youth ministers, man. Cause I so many people I know were like, yeah, I tried it for a year and left immediately. So God bless all youth pastors that are out there right now listening to this.
Bless y'all, especially if you end up like in the middle school section of youth ministry. Like
I got a middle schooler right now. I can't imagine 50 on Wednesday nights. No chance. Not happening. No.
Yeah, that's a high turnover rate for sure. All my buddies ended up there for a short time and then moved on to something else. But it's actually kind of cool to see if I look back, we'll get to this later, but all my friends that were in seminary and in that world, 90% of them now are in business of some sort.
It's amazing.
So it's really cool to see, a lot of things are happening there. So I'll speed up a little bit. I ended up started to trail out of ministry and into business. I started, my first job was at Chick-fil-A. It's kind of a rite of passage if you're an Atlanta boy. So I worked at Chick-fil-A for like 2 years, in downtown Atlanta at a really busy spot that, corporate like goes to and stuff like that. And I just learned customer service 101 right away. It was a beautiful, great company. And so that was kind of my first job, my real job. And then I jumped from there to an amazing organization called Boosterthon. Boosterthon does elementary school fundraising, but they don't sell cookie dough to kids. They set up a 2-week program where they teach kids leadership and character lessons. And then at the end of it, they do this like physical run, this marathon kind of thing at schools, and they raise money for the schools, and it works and it's awesome. So I did that for about 2 years, and that was a growing business in Atlanta.
That sounds like a for-profit Bible school, sort of. Like it's like, you know what
That's
I'm saying?
What it is.
For real, like you're making money and all the good.
What's cool is internally they call it like a leadership academy, because what they would do is just grab up kids like me, college kids, and throw them in there and just teach them how to be great leaders and how to do all kinds of stuff. So I was doing that in Atlanta, and in order to move up in that company, they were growing so fast that basically if you wanted to take the next position, you needed to move to that next city that they were launching. And so God just started to open doors. My family, my parents had moved from Atlanta to Tampa, Florida. I moved them down there. And when I brought them down there, I said, "Ooh, have fun. I'm never coming down here." Most of the times when I say never, that's exactly what God does. I know that's a lot of people's story, but that's exactly what happened. I followed a position to Tampa, and it was so weird because I was so happy in Atlanta. I had all my buddies. I was really involved at Passion City Church, one of the coolest things and just God moving things going on in that city at that time. But it was just so clear. You opened the doors. And I ended up in Tampa, Florida. I worked at that company for about a year, and then they wanted me to move again to another city for another higher position. But I had met my wife in Tampa. She was born and raised in Tampa. We met on a blind date, and I was done. I was like,
"You're done." Anchor in the ocean.
That was it. That was it. So I was like, "Darn, I really love this, but I'm here now. I'm not leaving Tampa." So I had to quickly find something else over the summer, because it's kind of a school year kind of job, and then in the summertime you take a break and then you start the next season. And so in that summer, I wasn't worried about it. I was like, "Oh, everywhere I've gone, I've gotten there by relationship," because in Atlanta, it was all intertwined. It was that Christian mafia, right? Called my buddy, ended up here, worked over there, did whatever. But I moved to Tampa, and that wasn't there anymore. Mm-hmm. Tampa was a very different city. I didn't really know a lot of people. I wasn't super involved in any churches down here. I was helping out my parents' church, and it just started this weird season for me. Some could call it a desert, but I think it was a beautiful time of really removing myself from this like evangelical world that I grew up in and was super, super used to. I mean, everyone in my life, everyone pretty much around me, unless I went to, a homeless ministry in Atlanta, everyone around me was like on fire for God, following Jesus. Every single person around me. I didn't live in the real world for the most part. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's just the journey that it ended up taking me on when I got to Tampa. So couldn't find a job. I'm looking. And of all the places in the world, the one place that offered me a position was BMW sales. So it's a BMW dealership down here. And they said, "Actually, you're not even good enough for sales yet. You're too green." Because I was a seminary kid, I'm sitting there like all smiley and,
I'm selling eternity. I can sell a BMW.
Exactly.
Come on now.
So anyways, they throw me into this position called a BMW genius. They teach me all about the car. And, when you go buy your BMW, Shane Sams, I deliver that car to you and show you all the technology, it's how it drives and all that kind of stuff. So I did that. And then
you're like support for the sales team, like the sales guys closing the deals. You're just features and benefits. That's what you're the brochure. You're the living brochure.
So I was doing that, ended up in the sales position after a little while because I needed to make more money because I was getting married. And all the time, man, every client that I had come in, I didn't sell the most cars because I wouldn't do what my managers wanted me to do, like most car salesmen do. But, I had the best clients and they all loved me. And it happened every time. About towards the end, after the car was bought and, we were ready to say goodbye, they're like, "What are you doing here?" Like they would always start to ask me questions about where did you come from? What did you do? And I was like, "Yeah, I was in seminary and I was running a ministry." And I was doing, and like, "Why are you selling cars now?" And I would come across CEOs and HR people and all kinds of business people that would ask for my resume and say, "Okay, I'll get you a position here." And so I was always trying to get out, but I knew it's exactly where God wanted me to be because he started to teach me how real people live I was alongside people that had been in the car business for 30 years.
You need that dose of reality.
You need that dose of reality.
We all need the smack in the face.
80% of my week was spent with real people that were rough and tumble and, had a lot of years on them and a lot of experiences that weren't my own. And I felt like it was like, okay, God was kind of pointing at me saying, you want to go be a missionary somewhere? That's cool. But do you just love people for real? Like, if I threw you in this deep end of a job that you really hate, that you really don't enjoy doing, will you love the people that I put you around? And I knew
also surviving without a network. Like that's an interesting thing that I can totally relate to that because so when I went to college, I went up there with one of my friends and he lost his mind and quit school. So then I end up in a room by myself. I'm in a dorm by myself. Nobody from my hometown is in this dorm. I get a random roommate who smoked more pot during the day that I would get up and go to class half the time. I would get up and go to class and he would close the curtains and sit and smoke pot and drink bourbon until I got home. Yes. And dude, I kid you not, man. I'd never been around anybody like this guy. And my buddy in high school, he was like a straight A student. So when he failed out and ended up on drugs and everything else, I was like, oh, that's what can happen to real people. And one day I walked in and I don't think I've ever told this story anywhere before. I opened the curtains and the sun shone in and the guy kind of squinted and turned away like a vampire getting melted. And I sat down across from him and I just said, I need you to move out. And he goes, and he takes a big draw off a joint and goes, I feel you, man. I feel you. He got up and walked out and never came back for any of his. I don't even know what happened to him at that point. And I'm like, what is happening, man? And then I moved to another city, twice to coach football. Knew nobody, no contacts, but God, thank God for getting me out of the good old boy network. And I came back to the good old boy network. Don't get me wrong. I moved back where I was the good old boy, But at the same time, you got to know how to survive in the wilderness. You got to know what rocks to look over have scorpions, which ones have scorpions on them, and which one have some manna, baby, right? Yeah. And you figure that out down there, man. So you're in this BMW, you're in this BMW shop, and in walks this Joe Johnson guy, right? Yeah. And so you get to know Joe Johnson, and what is like, how does he like, why him? Why is he the one you followed out of there?
Yeah. First of all, that roommate probably ended up as a youth pastor.
Hope so. I pray to God, hope I see him in heaven someday and be like, what'd you do for the last 45 years?
Yeah.
But,
so why Joe Johnson? Because of God. He had a Brazil tag on the front of his car. Joe grew up as a missionary kid in Brazil, and the car he brought in to trade to get a BMW, had a Brazil tag on the front. And so when I saw him pull in, I was kind of rushed out there because I was like, okay, I could connect with this guy. I didn't know who he was at all. I just felt like, go get that guy. Don't let anybody else get him, right? Because salespeople, they're all kind of good.
Oh yeah, like vultures.
Yeah. So I start, talking, asking what he needs and stuff like that. And I just bring up like, hey, I saw you have a Brazil tag. Are you just like Brazil soccer or something? He goes, no, I grew up a missionary kid in Brazil. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. I went on multiple mission trips to Brazil as a kid. In like high school. And I was like, no way, where? And we just started a conversation and I just kept on thinking like, okay, this is a guy I want to get to know, and I just kind of kept on pushing and he was like, yeah, this is the car I want. This is this. And he would kind of out of the side of his mouth kind of say, this is what I do or whatever. And at the time he was kind of running this real estate organization that helped nonprofits. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I'm trying to get into real estate.
Yeah.
Just trying to continue conversation. And, we went through the whole sales process and, we ended up becoming friends and he liked me and I liked him and our stories kind of combined. And I basically just kind of shot my shot, threw it out there and said, hey, if you're hiring, I'd love to do what you do. I'd love to help do what you do. And, I sold him a car and he obviously, if I could sell him a car, then he thinks that I could sell somebody else something or something like that. And so I basically bugged him for 3 months until it was finally like, okay, I can get you this like assistant position at the company because we're growing. And that was what made the transition. And
nice. I've always had it in my mind. I've always had this story in my mind a little bit. It's like, this would be a good narrative. It's like, I've always pictured it as you're signing the ink and you're selling Joe a car. And he's like, you know what, son? get in with me. And he drove you off with the BMW.
Set off.
That's the big fish version of that, of that story.
No,
so you were just an assistant. Were you his assistant or somebody else's assistant?
No, I was someone else's assistant. You met Sean, right? You know Sean now.
Sean Marcel. He speaks for me. Yeah.
I started with Sean Marcel. Yeah,
get out of here. I did not know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, we started up together looking at commercial real estate and trying to figure stuff out. And, I just kept doing what I did best, just meeting people and talking to people and putting deals together. And, it really hasn't really changed for me. That's kind of what it's been. I've grown and learned a lot. What those seasons of my life really taught me is how people negotiate, how people act. People who don't follow Jesus, we can't expect them to act the same way that I would, or treat people the same way that I would, or that Jesus would, because I'm not always perfect at it. But it really threw me in the deep end of contract negotiation on really, really big deals, from cars going into real estate on multi-million-dollar properties, to be able to sit across the table from billionaires, but having the experience of sitting across the table from homeless people in a third world country. Not everyone gets that experience in their life where they have that spectrum of human beings that they just come into contact with and can sit across the table from and just treat them like anybody else, like they're your brother or your friend or whatever.
Jocelyn always there's an awesome wrestling quote. I say this all the time. It's from Macho Man Randy Savage, and it says, "I've soared with the eagles and I've slithered with the snakes, and I've been everywhere in between, brother." Right? And Jocelyn likes to say, because relationships is a huge part of what we do too, like with our community and our friends and our family. And Jocelyn says, "I think people like us because we're just as comfortable on Millionaires Row at the Kentucky Derby or on Derby Road at the trailer park. Like, it don't matter. Like, anywhere we're going to go, like, it's just people, man. Right. And if you can solve that I think that's where people struggle with relationships, is if they're not like you can't relate to them. But man, once you unlock that superpower of, God, we're all just God's people. Everyone's made in God's image. We're all the same. We just have different backgrounds. That's it. And man, when you start having those conversations and start listening to those billionaires and start listening to those homeless people, you realize that the gap between those two spots in life is not very far at all.
Yeah, it's usually just a few opportunities.
It's a few people walking in and buying a car from you.
That's right.
All right, so let's fast forward a little bit. All right, so that's awesome, man. I love it. This is I love starting from the bottom, working way up, man. Like, so you're Sean Marcel's assistant who's working for Joe. So you're like it's the Kevin Bacon game. You're still a couple seasons away here, a couple spots away. All right, so you go through Wellfont, you work for some other companies for Joe, right? And then during the global pandemic, he reaches out. Are you working for Joe when he comes up with the idea for Life Surge, or are you doing something else at the time?
Well, Joe had been kind of telling me the dream of, it wasn't even Life Surge. It was kind of like this dream of like, hey, I feel like we need, like, this is a missing piece, right? All along the way. But I had left the real estate organization and actually worked for a company called Freedom Boat Club. And it's just like a boating club in Florida. It's the largest, actually. And I basically became a strategic relationship manager for them, helping them acquire real estate and get new partners, business partners, a lot of B2B kind of business stuff. So I was doing that for about a year in between real estate and moving on to Life Surge. And so, but I wasn't loving that. I loved the company, but it was such a slower pace than what I was used to. They were paying me 40 hours a week for something that took me 10 hours to do. Yeah. And for some people that'd be fun. Some people are like, hey, just ride on a boat all day and kind of schmooze people. Like, why not? That's fun. I was just bored. It wasn't fast paced enough for me. I was 28 and 29 and I was like, man, I should be, using every bit of the skills and abilities that God has given me. And I'm kind of like taking the lazy way out. And so I started to search and I randomly called Joe. Actually didn't really want to talk to Joe. Right. we were talking about a year and I randomly called him and was just looking for people that he might know, looking for that network again to say, hey, I'm looking for stuff. Do you know a CEO or anybody or organization that would need someone like me? And he was like, Matt, actually, I've been praying for you. I need you.
Get out of here.
Or something. And I had been praying for you because I've needed you. And I asked Sean if I should reach out to you, but he told me that you're having a great time at the boat club. And so not to bother you. So I wasn't going to call you. And I was literally just praying for God to send me someone else like you. And you called me right when I was praying. And so that was just like all the other interactions, every season and stage in my life has been something like that. Some just Holy Spirit, God kind of connection through relationship. And that was the moment. And I said, okay, well then what are you doing? And let me know about it. And I'll pray on whether it's the thing for me. And when he told me what the vision was and what he needed, I said, yeah, I'm made for that. That's what I'm made.
So you left that job and just went all in with Joe, and he just at that point, you've been there.
It was nothing at that point. It was really a baby thing. They had a few speakers. They were trying to do their first event, but this was in the thick of COVID. This was right in the middle of it. And there was no events really happening, but they knew he just doubled down. He knew that God wanted him to double down and build this thing. And he was trying to put the team together. But we had no partners. We didn't have you. We only had a few speakers. Like there was a lot of pieces that were missing in the puzzle. And there
was a lot of furniture missing from the office. What are you talking about? People. There was a lot of nothing at the beginning, man.
So it was definitely
startup side.
It was definitely a leap, but it was, for me, I'm sitting there looking at all the past seasons of my life, and the whole time it's almost like a movie, right? Where I'm wherever I am right now, and I can see where I'm going from the past, and I can see the full picture of what God's putting together. And I knew for this season, since I had moved to Tampa, since I left Atlanta up to this moment right then, that it was a preparation season. I knew all along each job I had, I was kind of like, oh, I know you're just teaching me, but this doesn't feel like what I'm made to do yet. Like, I'm like, I was confused. I was like, do you want me in the ministry world? Do you want me in the business world? Why did you separate me from all this? Why am I here in this weird 5-year season other than to meet my beautiful wife and start my life here? And this kind of solidified it. I saw it come full circle and say, okay, all those things from your past that you experienced in the event world and the Christian conference world and all those people that from there, and then everything you've learned about business for this season, I'm bringing both of them together, and you're going to go do what you're made to do.
Dude, it is crazy how God does that, because like I was we got a grant when I was in high school, and we got all this like equipment, and it was like a media equipment, and you could edit VHS tapes into stuff, and it was designed to make a little news broadcast for your. So I had you were literally like put the VHS here, a third blank one, and you would edit it together, right? And you had all these cheesy 80s special effects you could do, like whatever. And what was funny is the first football job I ever got, I was trying to get an internship at this really powerhouse school, and he was like, have you ever coached football before? I'm like, no, I played, but I played in high school. I didn't play in college or anything. And he's like, well, and it's the other. And I looked over, and they had all this like when I was in the office, there was all these like there was all these equipment, and it was similar to what I'd had in that thing. And I looked over and I said, but I can edit video. And he goes, oh man, I need somebody to do our highlights and our Thursday films so we can cut up all the third downs. Boom. I'm like, can I coach? I said, can I coach freshman football with it? And he goes, yep. So that's how I got in. It was like, that was there. And then I got really good at editing there. And then I get a job at West Virginia University where I'm helping with film and recruiting videos and all this stuff. So like my entire coaching career, my first half of it was just me. I knew how to use some technology and nobody else did because I did it in high school. But dude, when I started the business, okay, and I was like, okay, I have to start a podcast or YouTube or something. I got to have content, right? Mm-hmm. I downloaded this program called Audacity, and it was a free program, and it let you edit audio, right? When I opened the screen, I knew how to use it because I knew how to edit the VHS tapes, and it was pretty much the same. And I figured out the interface. And I was like, that's what made me a podcaster. Like I've been preparing to be the podcaster since my senior year in high school and all through my football career. And I didn't even know it.
When
awesome. You look back at that, it's incredible. I learned something like from your story so far. I want to share these takeaways because man, this is amazing. I just want to make sure people don't miss these, like for relationships. Yeah. Like one, talk to everyone. Doesn't matter, man. Like when we're at Life Surge, I want to meet every person on the crew all the way up to the headliner, right? And talk to them. And that's what you've done your whole life is you just talked. But also another thing, the second thing I heard in your story is you pick up the phone and ask for help. Like you called Joe, you call other people. And I know so many people that have a network better than mine, and they won't pick up the phone and ask for help. Like if you don't ask, you don't receive, right? And so managing relationships, asking, and also too sometimes just saying yes to a friend, like, hey, you want to do this? Like, all right, let's see what happens. Like that's a huge like relationship deal. So all right, so you transfer over and you go from building a network to Joe basically has you reaching out to all these superstar people, right? Like I remember when Loren sent me a message the first time, I thought this was a fake scam. I didn't know what was going on because I went to the website and it was like a photoshopped picture of a stadium with like Tim Tebow's picture on the front cover. And I'm like, is Tim Tebow even really coming? And like the speakers would change every week. Like I would keep going back and looking at it. And I'm like, that's not even the same people. But what's that like to, hey, Matt, because I know how Joe works. He's going to tell you to do something and then she's going to do something else. So it's like, hey, Matt, I need you to call, Tim Tebow, Priscilla Shire, rock stars. And I want you to go get me this musical, Matthew West. And I'll see you on Thursday. Tell me how it does. Like, what was that like to just be like, okay, now it's total stranger superstars. How do you manage that kind of relationship? You know
what's great is I never had an ounce of experience in this world on this level before Joe asked me to come on board. And what that says is, hey, managing relationships, you don't have to have experience dealing with mega superstars. You just have to have experience with people, real people, because that's all they are at the end of the day. You have to be able to have amazing customer service. And I was super blessed. I mean, I didn't just learn these things myself, right? So if Joe asked me to go do something, it's because I had learned from him, learned from a ton of years of experience from mentors and different people and leaders in my life, where I got to watch them and how they authentically interacted with people and genuinely cared about people and were interested over interesting and read books. I mean, there was years of preparation, just like you for the podcasting. And that's exactly, I didn't know where it was going at the time, but a book was handed to me and I read it and the experience happened and I absorbed it. And a leader showed me how to do something and I repeated it. And mainly God took me on a journey to understand Jesus better and who he really was. He separated me from a lot of built up evangelical church world mindset that some of it's great, but a lot of it built a lot of walls around us. And that's what I had in my life before I kind of went on this season and this journey that I think a lot of people do, go through some sort of desert and kind of become really, really close to who the person of Jesus was and is, and how he just interacted with the world, right?
He built the whole thing in relationships.
It was all through, he just walked and prostitute. Okay, I'll talk to her.
That's right.
Walked, oh, there's billionaire or tax collector, whoever it is, I'll have dinner with them. And until you truly understand how radical that was in that society, to have dinner, to set a table and have people around it that were of different walks of life and were, not all of the Jewish faith or whatever. That's incredible. And so he set the example. I just said, okay, well, and I knew I was stepping out of my depth. So to answer your question, I knew, right? Okay. When Joe says we need to go get these people that you've never talked to, you don't even know the route of how to get to them. Right. I knew I was stepping into the deep end of something I had no ability to do on my own. And so it was a moment of, I have to surrender and just say, Jesus, you put me here. I have absolute confidence that you put me here. So if you put me here, it means I can do it. It means you have a path forward. And it gave me unbelievable confidence, not necessarily in myself, not prideful confidence in Jesus. That I just
took the pressure off too, probably, because you were
pressure off. It was like, don't be scared. He said, don't be scared of any email. Don't be scared of any text message or Zoom call or reaching out to anybody. You reach out in love and in authenticity, and you just serve people, and I'll bring the fruit. I'll let you know if they're the right person. I'll give you a nose to be able to smell whether or not the Holy Spirit saying, yes, this is the person to work with. And there was a lot of that. I mean, hundreds of meetings, hundreds of phone calls and Zoom calls and in-person meetings, trying to find out, is this the right person for this piece that we're trying to build?
Yeah. Is that not just trying to get anybody in to say yes? Like,
not just trying to get anybody. It's like, okay, there was tons of people on the list, right? Of saying, hey, go get this speaker because they're going to be a great draw. And we would try and get them and doors would close and we'd have conversations and it just didn't feel right. Not that person's wrong. It was just not right for that moment. And, so it was a walking with Jesus kind of journey, and it still is. And what I learned very quick in that process was it was a lot less about me and my abilities and the things and all these like step-by-step tactics and processes. It was a lot more about me being in the right posture to receive human beings, right? To catch human beings in whatever mood they're in that day and whatever moment they're experiencing that day, and making sure that I'm in a place to talk to someone I've never talked to before, and being in a posture of trusting Jesus, wanting to be like him. And literally before every email, before every text, before every call I had, I just said, Jesus, just like at the very least, make me smell like you.
Right.
Just let me
So people
like,
sense it. Yeah, man.
you know, just put that off. I don't know if I have all the right words to say. You've given me a lot of experience. So I didn't know how to talk and work through contracts and negotiate and all those kinds of things. And you've prepared me for that, and you'll continue to teach me. But at the baseline, which I think is more important than anything, is, hey, Jesus, help me to just represent you in this conversation. And
I've always felt too, like in our conversations, you know, it's, and like, you know, we don't say yes to a lot of things, of course, because some things are just like not a good fit. Like I don't want to be associated with certain things that reach out to us. Right. But then like what you said there was interesting. It's like also reaching out, like those people, like big time speakers and stuff, like they get reached out a lot as from takers, right? People just want to jump on the coattails, but it's like, I've always felt like the biggest thing you do in our relationship is like, you're always availability. You always reach out with service, right? Like it's clearly a co-laboring partnership vibe, right? With the way you build relationship. I've incorporated stuff. Like I've learned from you, dude. You have no idea. Like I even think about you when I'm talking to other partners and things we do online. And I'm like, what would Rayburn do right here? Like, how, you know, like, because like there is service and it is authentic and it's not fake, and it's not, well, I need them to get me on their stage because I can do this for me. It's like, well, wait a minute. No, this thing would be a great fit for you because your mission is right. Exactly. And like when you put that out to the world, like people see that. I mean, they can tell authenticity. Like that's the most, I think for the, not the other two events weren't this, but we were still moving pieces around. But like from the first note of music in Dallas, I felt like the authenticity, right? And like it's curating that authenticity and being authentic that lets you build like these relationships, you know, because you don't have any experience, dude. It's like when Joe says, all right, welcome, you're here. Yeah, go get me Matthew West and Tim Tebow. Wait, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, how do I do that? Yeah, you figure it out. And he goes on and I know Joe. He's going to another meeting at that point, right? But like one time when I was a graduate assistant at West Virginia. Coach Rich Rodriguez was my head coach. And he came in and goes, hey, Shane, I want you to build something for me. And I'm like, okay. And, you know, I'm just trying to figure out how to be a GA and coach college football. And I don't even know what's going on. But GAs have other jobs, and it's to basically serve the coach's whims and fancies. And he goes, I want to build a batting cage out at my house, but I want you to go and get me a batting cage. But it's going to be different than a normal batting cage. And I said, okay. So I thought, you know, get online, find a company, order it for him, make sure it gets set up. Like I'm just helping him out. Right. Yeah. And he goes, no, he goes, but I want this to be a golf batting cage. I want it to be twice as high as a normal batting cage. I want it to be a time and a half as long. I want it to be shaped like a pyramid. So if I shank it, I can see it better. And I want to make sure that I can hit golf balls into it and not let it go through the net. And I was like, when do you want this? And he's like, next month, you know, about 6 weeks. And I'm like, because it was getting ready to get warm again, whatever. And so he leaves, and all the other GAs just look at me and just started dying laughing because, like, this doesn't exist. This isn't even a real thing that you can order, right? So me, the dude from Kentucky, right, who's just trying to make it in the world, has to go out and figure out how to engineer the greatest golf range batting cage that's ever existed, right? And, you know, but it was funny because like I started, you know, I started like, I can't do this. So I reached out to Jocelyn. I reached out to her dad. He's an engineer. And we started talking about it. We started finding companies, and with my relationships and all of that, we figured out, we built this thing, dude. Like we actually built this giant golf batting range. It did not exist. Like the company, we just ordered the net from one company, the poles from one company, everything. And it's just like, I never could have done that alone. The information had to have gotten downloaded into my brain because I didn't know anything about anything like that. Right. But it's just like when you say, okay, let's figure it out, you will figure it out. You will figure out how to get Tim Tebow or Priscilla Shire or Auntie Ann or whatever. You'll figure it out because you're just like, I'm not doing it by myself. So together we'll all do it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're not, and I can't take credit for half of those. I mean, actually, Tim, we had in-house already before I came on, and that was from a very personal relationship connection that Joe had. He prayed over it, and he wrote the personalized letter and just laid his vision out and sent it out into the world through connection. That's a beautiful thing, though. Him handing that relationship off to you now to manage, though. That's even like sometimes when I've introduced people to podcasters to get on their podcast, and it's like, you got to have a lot of trust in someone to hand a relationship to them and trust that they'll manage it, Oh
yeah. And that's almost more important than the acquisition, right? So acquiring a relationship, it starts with trust. Can you build trust in 3 seconds? Can you walk into a room and give off a genuine impression that, hey, I'm trustworthy. I'm not here to come take from you, right? I'm here to learn who you are, what your dreams are, what you're doing, and see if we can find mutual benefit together, right? And if you're not starting from that place, then most people could probably smell that, and you might still get the sale, but you're already starting at a foundation of a relationship that's, I'm here to take from you, and people are used to that. That's what the world does. We get sold every day. You're probably getting 5 phone calls right now blowing up trying to sell you a car warranty.
I sent 2 emails this morning to everybody listening right now. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Everybody's selling every day.
you sound immediately, if you feel that, immediately that someone's just trying to get you to buy something. And that's not what relationships are. I'm not here to get you to buy something. I'm here to see if you want to come along.
Hey, let me tell you a story real quick about that. I got another story about this. So like you get this all the time. Like I'll shake someone's hand at a conference and they'll be like, can I be on your podcast? And I'm like, you're a taker. You're just a taker, But like we were at I'll tell you another football story. I don't tell enough football stories on this podcast. So when I was at West Virginia, my main job at West Virginia, I worked with kickers. I helped run punt team, and I was with Coach Rod. I was like his assistant, right? So he coached quarterback, so I'd sit in the quarterback meetings, and I would do all the admin stuff for him. And so one thing we did was we ran interference for him in places. Like me and the GAs would keep people away from him at these conferences. So we went to the American Football Coaches Association clinic, the biggest clinic in the world for football coaches, thousands of coaches. He was speaking on one backs or whatever. And, it's, a conference. I mean, there's no secret doors. I mean, everybody's in the halls. Speakers are walking around most of the time, and, get mobbed and all this stuff. And Coach Rod was hot at the time. I mean, top 10 coach, offense was killing it. So we went to the bathroom, and it was me and a couple GAs. So, you don't think anything in a bathroom, right? So, so I go to a urinal. Coach goes to urinal. Bob goes to a urinal, whatever. And, wasn't paying attention, look over, and there's a line. I just thought there was a guy behind Coach Rod. Okay, he's in line. It's really not, Coach Rod turns around, and that guy goes straight into the pitch. He's like, I'm so-and-so. I'm this. I'm a passionate football. We're in the bathroom. He just turned around, zipped his drawers up.
Yeah.
And he goes, I would love to, if it would be okay. I've got a resume, and I just would love to give you my resume, sir, if I could ever work for your program. And, Coach Rod looks at him and goes, dang, son, I ain't even washed my hands, and just walked right by him, just ghosted him, man. And I'm like, that's not how you build a relationship right there, people. You got to do something else, man. So
yeah. Oh man, timing is a lot. And it's not.
The urinal's bad timing for everybody listening. The urinal is terrible.
There's some that are just clearly that was not the right timing, and sometimes it's a God thing. So I'd say, what's crazy is not a single relationship is wasted in God's kingdom.
Yeah.
He is about relationships and moments, and he makes those things happen. You're just there along for the ride and prepared and in the posture to receive it, and so I can't tell you how many relationships came out of my past, people that like, we were friends, but we hadn't talked in years, but it was almost weird at that time, kind of that feeling you get sometimes of like, this is an important relationship for some reason, it's going to come back around. And the weird connections that kind of came back through Jesus, kind of God just planting it in our head, like, hey, text this guy. Yeah. No reason, just text this guy and see what he's doing now and check in with him. And the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon thing happens, and you end up with Mav City on your stage.
That's right.
Hottest worship band in the country right now, has no reason to really know who Life Surge is, or talk to me, or talk to Joe, or anything. And through relationship, those are the kinds of things that happen. And so it all comes together. It's not being afraid to ask for help, right? When Joe says, or our leadership team says, hey, we feel like is the next piece of this, we need to build that, and that's what we need to go get. It always pretty much starts from an impossible place, which is fun because, that's all you got to do is try. All you can do is try,
Relationships almost always start from an impossible point. Totally. That's a great quote, because man, they do. You know,
They do.
That's a great
And
question.
so the first step for me is, okay, what are all the avenues that I could take to try and get to that human being in an authentic way? Of course, I can go straight to an agency and straight to, here's how much we want to pay you, and here's what the contract is, and here's the deal. That's kind of like,
you might know somebody that knows them. You never know,
I'd much rather get to them through a friend in their ear saying, hey, I love this person and I know these people and what they're doing, and I think you should talk to them. And I'd much rather them get hit by 5 different people from all these different angles, hearing about what we're doing in an authentic way, and then hear from me, than to only hear from me from one route as another person on the lineup of list of people that want to pay them to do something.
So let me ask you about, let's wrap up here with managing relationships. So like, I love listening to people. Don't be afraid to ask, be authentic, make sure you're not going in it selfishly. Like these are all, and also like, I love that all relationships start from an impossible point. We teach a concept called Dream 100, where you write down the 100 people you want to connect with. And like, and some of them might be like, this is a rock star, you know what I'm saying? Right. And then like, but you got to figure it out. Like once you've put it on paper, you can figure out how to like get to them, Yeah. But like, once you get these relationships, especially in a true work environment where there's mutual benefit, I mean, let's be realistic. We're running a business. People are getting paid to be on stage. So there's all kinds of compensation. I mean, we all have time. There's so many moving parts, so many needs from people backstage. I know some speakers have different requirements than others. You know what I'm saying? I'm kind of like
real difficult. He needs Perrier backstage.
I know. I got to have my blue M&Ms and
right.
No, sit me at a quarter. That's all I need. But it's like. Right. What are like a couple of good points like for maintaining these healthy relationships and not assuming that they're okay, not letting them fade away once you get these business or personal relationships? Like, how do you go about managing them to make sure they stay healthy?
Yeah, it's the hardest part. It all starts with a foundation, like we talked about, the foundation of trust and mutual benefit. But then you said something right there about assuming. Never assume that everybody's just good. Right. Because especially in business, there's just so many ways to hurt somebody. Even if you all have good intentions, it's going to happen. Everyone can have good intentions in a business agreement. And somehow because of this, that, or the other, it could cause something and somebody to just kind of go, oh, that didn't feel good, but I'm not going to say anything because I just want to keep the good vibes going. That's where I think every organization does need a chief relationship officer who has their finger on that pulse and is thinking about, hey, we just made this decision business-wise that we had to make. This was the right decision to make. But recognize that it's just putting yourself in another person's shoes, recognizing that how did they experience that? Even though we try to communicate as best as possible, how did they take that? How does that affect the dreams and the things that they had planned for? And because we're brothers or we're sisters now, and we're actually in a relationship and we call it a partnership, we need to care about that. It can't just be one-sided. So for me, how I approach that, because it's just as impossible as trying to get to somebody that doesn't know you at all. It's complete honesty, almost to the detriment of what you're trying to accomplish. And it's kind of allowing God to come into that and just honoring God in it, I think. So I try to be honest as much as possible, almost to the point of, hey, this is exactly why we did this. And I know it hurt you and I want to talk about it and we want to make it right as much as we can. And some people just aren't open to that kind of honesty. They're not able to, they've never experienced that. And so they always are used to people taking advantage of them. And so it's hard to come over that sometimes, but that's when there's problems. So, on one side, retaining a relationship is never assuming, always being careful and always knowing that, hey, there could be a problem. There could be something going through their head that you just not been aware of. And that's the point of always staying in touch and always kind of asking, hey, are we good? If we're not, I'm the guy to come be honest with me. Come tell me exactly what we're doing that caused you to feel a certain way, That's a consistency. And then the second part is making life fun. Make it fun, make working together. I want a speaker, if they come be a part of Life Surge, I want them to be enriched from Life Surge. I don't want them to just make money and speak and, okay, that was kind of cool. And then go on.
Cog in the machine, go home. You don't want that.
I want them to come. And this is a thing that we're trying to craft and build. So it's not all there, it's not always going to be perfect, but man, if these people could come and actually be enriched by what we're doing, and actually we can help them in whatever dream that they're trying to do outside of Life Surge, whether that's a partner or a speaker or an attendee or a friend or whatever it is, I feel like that's what it's all about. Relationships. That's what Jesus was all about. When he interacted with people, they left changed. They left enriched. They left abundant. They left completely new. When they sat at the table with Jesus, they left smelling like him, having experienced him, and having a brand new life, no matter what walk they were in. And so, that's kind of the goal, at least. And having that mentality really shifts how you do business. It makes you make decisions differently when that's a standard. It's not something that can be compromised.
Yeah, that's epic, dude. Like, never assuming your relationship's good. I think that's good marriage advice, parenting advice, business advice, like Jesus advice, like whatever advice, you know what I'm saying? Expectations, putting yourself in their shoes, and that honesty to your own detriment, like just being as transparent as possible. It's funny because I don't think people necessarily always lie to each other in relationships, but people will omit. They will omit. They will not say anything. They will hold their expectation to the vest or not let you know when an expectation wasn't met until it festers. And I think that's kind of like a let the sun set on your anger kind of advice, right? Like you've just dealing with things quickly, like just helps so much, man, in any relationships. And it's like I said at the very beginning of this conversation, I know when I text Matt Rayburn, I'm going to get a text back. And I often think to myself, like, am I that guy? Am I avoiding? Am I not doing? Am I not letting that authenticity and honesty and ruthless transparency come through? Because, that's what it's all about. Well, listen, man, I'm glad that me and you are in relationship. I love you, brother. And I was excited about this conversation today, man. We haven't really talked about this. We always get so in business, man, entrepreneurs, we're dumb. We get tactical and we get strategic and we think we've made good subject lines or crafted good pitches and our speeches in order and the music was right and all these things that, the world does really, really, really well. But really, honestly, the difference in, is fellowship and relationship. And I think you do it better than anybody else, man. That's awesome stuff, dude.
I appreciate that, man.
Hey, tell everybody real quick about LifeSurge and where they can go learn more about it.
Yeah. So LifeSurge is a movement. We saw a gap in a disparity of what we do. 90% of our life, 80% of our week is spent at work or in trying to survive in this world, right? Trying to make money so that we can pay the mortgage or invest or follow that dream. And we saw an opportunity to train Christians in that workspace, in that marketplace. We didn't want to leave a gap for Christians to go get knowledge about investing and entrepreneurship from somebody else because God has something to say about it. So we wanted to gather people in every city across this country, gather them in their city, entrepreneurs, investors, dreamers, 9-to-5ers that are just trying to figure out how to do the marketplace God's way. So LifeSurge is all about surging your life because it's all about abundance. Once you come across God, you're going to have an abundance, right? You're going to change, you're going to be enriched, you're going to surge. So we're all about surging your life God's way. And if you want to check out more about LifeSurge, you can go to lifesurge.com. We are planning events across the country in local cities in your backyard. And hopefully we can help ignite a movement in the marketplace in your city next.
Yeah, man. And you can see an old boy from Southeast Kentucky hanging out.
That's right. You can come see Shane Sams.
Come on out now, people. Come on out.
Come on out.
All right, y'all. That's about all the time we have for today's podcast on the Shane Sams Show. Before we go, I wanted to let you know that this podcast is, of course, sponsored by my other company, my other podcast, the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast and the Flipped Lifestyle Community over at flippedlifestyle.com. That's FLIPPED lifestyle.com. Over at Flipped Lifestyle, we help real families, real men and women, real couples start, build, and grow an online business of their own so you can replace your income, become and stay self-employed, and change your family's future. Remember, all you need is 100 people to pay you $50 a month, and you can make $60,000 a year. 200 people will be $120,000 a year. There's 7 billion people on the planet, and you only need about 100 of them to change your life and change your family's future forever. We help people start online memberships built on the things that you already love, the things that you've learned in the past, the thing that you've lived through. We believe everyone has God-given skills, talents, and abilities that they can use to start an online business and create an online income. We've helped thousands of people start, build, and grow online businesses, and I'm confident that we can help you too. I'm so confident I'll even let you try our program for free. If you want the flipped lifestyle experience, if you want to see what it's like to go through our training at one of our live events, if you want to go and get access to all the mindset training and all the personal development and all of the online business training you need to start your journey, we're going to give you a 30-day free trial today. All you have to do is go to flippedlifestyle.com/free. That's FLIPPED lifestyle.com/free. And you can get access to our Flipped Lifestyle Experience membership right now. That's going to give you training to help you find your idea. That's going to give you the tools to research your idea and make sure that it can make money online. And we're going to show you how to get started so you can start building an online business of your own. You're also going to get access to our online community forums where you can hang out with other family-focused entrepreneurs from around the world. Our mission is to help you start, build, and grow an online business, replace your income, build wealth, and leave an inheritance to your children's children. But we can't help you if you don't get started. So head over to flippedlifestyle.com/free today. Also, if you love the Shane Sam Show, if you're enjoying my guests, if you're enjoying these episodes every single week, could you do me a favor? Help us spread the word. We would love for you to go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe to us and leave us a 5-star review. Or if you use another podcast app, make sure you leave us a review on that app as well. Hey, download a few episodes of the podcast too. That can show the algorithm that there's people listening and other people need to hear this. I got a great review this week from a user named Blisseri. The title of the review says, "The flip has begun, y'all. 5 stars. Blisseri says, "I went and got a Bluetooth stereo and new speakers installed in my older vehicle just so I could listen to the Shane Sam Show and the Flip Lifestyle podcast." Cue the confetti. That's something right now, man. I got people upgrading their stereo system just to hear the podcast, to get that message of hope and business and life. That's what I'm talking about. Blisseri goes on, "This has been a very wise use of my driving time. I've learned so much already and have laughed, cried, and most importantly, I'm seeing a mindset change that it is going to make my dreams possible. The Shane Sam Show is life-changing, and so is Flipped Lifestyle. Wow. I'm so impressed with the high-quality content, the amazing guests of the show. Shane is one of my favorite people on earth. Thank you so much for doing this podcast." Man, thank you, Blisseri, for leaving that podcast review. I read every single one of those reviews, guys. I would love to hear from you. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people each month that are actually out listening to these podcasts that we do, the Flip Lifestyle podcast and the Shane Sam Show. I would love to hear your thoughts on the show and how it's making a difference in your life. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stop for a minute and go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcast app that you might be listening on. I'll read every single one of them, and I might even read yours on air. That's all the time we have for this week's Shane Sam Show. As always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, in whatever you're trying to do in business and life, be consistent, be prolific, be relentless. Use your God-given skills to make an impact, y'all. Pick up your stone, cast it out upon the waters, and cause many ripples. We'll see you next time. Bye.